Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to another video. Now, this hype around Scrap Mechanic Survival coming out next week is pretty high, and we've probably all seen the trailer by now, because if you haven't, you should promptly remove the rock from your head so you can get out from under it and watch the trailer. But since I did my initial reaction and impressions of the trailer, I decided to go back and really spend some time analyzing almost frame by frame to see, is there any hidden information in this trailer, or just little details that most people may not have noticed, including myself, in their first 10 watch-throughs of the trailer. And I've compiled a list of roughly 12 different things that I noticed when I was combing through this trailer at about 1/5 the normal speed. And I also referenced previous dev blogs to compare some notes on like what they teased in the past versus what we're seeing in the trailer now. And I found some interesting things that I'm curious what you're gonna think about. So let's get into detail number 1. If you go to about 25 seconds in the trailer, you'll notice that our mechanic is standing up here, but notice that he has no backpack. And then when you fast forward, slow forward in this case, about 2 seconds, here, let's speed it up a little bit. Now you notice, look at this. This is a backpack, but it's smaller than your typical Scrap Mechanic backpack. So we see this right here. We also see this around 33 seconds. There's this like smaller like satchel type backpack. And then we also have another example here at 39 seconds. You see both of these mechanics have small backpacks. And actually you're seeing that his clothes are still tattered here. Like they're still burned down from the wreckage. But then fast forward a few more seconds to 45. Once we make the transition from janky old vehicle to raft, now you can see all of these mechanics have our standard backpack that we see in the game right now with the rods sticking out from either side. So this is indicating to me that perhaps our backpack is an upgradable item, just like we have upgrades to like engines and thrusters that they've teased in the past. So maybe this initial backpack that we start with near the beginning, this small little thing, might be less capable than the standard backpack that we're seeing. At this point in the video, we actually see at least 3 different kinds of backpacks. If you look really closely, our middle mechanic here has our normal backpack that we've been seeing, but this mechanic on the left, this mechanic has a different type of backpack, and then this mechanic has another different type of backpack, but they're really, really hard to see the details, but I found examples of them later on in the trailer. Here we go. Now we see another case of all 3 of those backpacks. Here's our standard one. And then here's this one, which it has like some loops coming off of it. And then there's this one, which isn't really like a backpack. It's more of like a open crate, and she's got like some slabs just resting in there. You can see as she's running, she's got like 2 slabs in this different type of backpack thing. So that's not it though. There's actually some more backpack types that are revealed in this trailer. Here, you can see another 2 additional backpacks. Look at these guys here. This guy has some type of green thing on his backpack, and this guy's got like a duffel bag, like a cylindrical duffel bag looking type thing. And here's another example of all of them as well. So there's the one with the loops, here's the duffel bag looking backpack, and then there's, this one looks very different than all the other ones. It almost looks like it has a screen on it or something. I don't know what kind of backpack that is. So this has me asking some questions and wondering, I'm assuming that those beginner backpacks we see in the beginning of the trailer are like lesser backpacks that have less capabilities, but I'm wondering if all of these variations that we see in like the more established stage of the game, is there any actual difference between these backpacks, or do they actually serve a different type of function? I'm assuming that they're just going to be cosmetic. Once you reach a certain stage, then it's like, here's your normal backpack, but you can change how this normal backpack looks after you've upgraded from your starter backpack or something like that. All right, so moving on to detail number 2. All right, so here we go. They're building their car, they got their car ready, and then they set their car down. Everything's normal, right? But did you notice something a little bit different than the way the game works right now? I'll play it back one more time, see if you catch it. Right there. Did you notice that the lift disappears from underneath their vehicle while they're sitting in the seats? Normally in the current state of the game, in order to delete your lift, you have to get out of your vehicle and look at the lift and delete it, or move the lift somewhere else in order to release your vehicle off of the lift. So they teased in some previous dev blogs that the lift is going to be getting an overhaul with new features and things like that. So it seems like we may be able to control our lift or remove our lift while we're sitting in the seat of our vehicle. And then also in this same shot, there was something else I noticed. If you look right here, there's actually an entrance to the crashed ship. So I think this actually confirms that when we crash, we'll be able to enter the ship that we crashed. It could have just as well been the case that the ship was just going to be wreckage that we couldn't enter and explore it all, but it looks like we may be able to go in and explore, and maybe that's where we get some of our initial tools, and maybe that beginner backpack that we see at the beginning of the trailer. These backpacks right here that they're wearing actually. Maybe we can retrieve those from inside the ship after we've crash landed. Okay, moving on to the next detail at 108. So this is a really important shot here because this shows pretty much the completed base in the trailer, or the base that they've built to its highest potential. So I scanned this base looking at all the different parts and pieces and building materials, and there's a couple of things I noticed that I think are going to be important. This piece right here, this is located at various places around the base. So I think this is a key part of base building right here. Because look, there's one right here. There's the same thing right here. One right here. There's one right over here. There's one up here. There's one up here. There's one up here. There's probably more that I'm not even seeing. Oh, it looks like there might be one right here. You get that yellow light coming off. So my best bet is that these are some type of electrical generators that are powering the base, and you have to hook up various things and machines to these bases. What is also really interesting though is that these radio tower things, which I assumed were just aesthetic, like they just built them using the radio tower pieces that we have just to look interesting. But the fact that there's an electrical generator next to each one of these towers makes me wonder if these actually serve more than a visual purpose. So let me know what you guys think about that theory right there. Okay, also in this shot is the reveal of how the storage chests are going to look. If you look right here, we have a storage chest, and there's also one, I think, sitting right there as well. And there's also a couple other places where you can see the storage chest at 149. Check this out. Watch the right side of the screen here. Right there, you see another example of the storage chest. And then again at 156, it is right here on the right side of the mechanic. And notice that they have these port things. There's one on the top and there's one on the side. I think that's going to be really important, and I'll get to those a little bit later. Now, I found these interesting because I assumed that the challenge mode chests that we have were going to be the same thing for storage in the actual game, but no, it looks like they have a completely new design for chests in survival mode. Okay, so keeping with this theme of storage and these chests, we're going back to this shot here. There's a couple of different crafting areas that you can see here. There's one over here and then there's one over here, and the chest next to each of these. So we're gonna go over to the more obvious one. All right, right here at 121, this is the refinery. So it's clear that this thing is going to be related to these pieces that these mechanics are holding and that they're being stored right here. Speaking of which, you can see that there's confirmed at least 3 base materials. I'm assuming that we have stone, wood, and then metal. And these metal are actually, they're the same color and similar shapes to the hay bots that we see attacking the base, and we'll see another detail about that a little bit later on. So it seems like this refinery is next to this chest. So those little ports that we saw next to the chest here, do we see one on this chest? We see the chest over here next to this craft bot. All right, here in this shot here, you see the crafting station again, and look at how the chest aligns very nicely with this part of the craft bot. I think that there's kind of an automated storage link going on between the chest and then the machines that they are next to. It's a little bit harder to see with this one since we're at an angle behind the chest. But from what I gathered from looking back into devblogs about how this stuff is going to work is this is the refinery and then this is the craft bot. And the difference between those is that the refinery, I think, is going to be turning these base materials into blocks. So like you're building your concrete blocks, your wooden blocks, your metal blocks, your base materials like that for building. But then you use those blocks to supply the craft bot here to make specific parts. So for instance, if you want a thruster, I think that's where the craft bot is going to be coming into play. And you'll have to give that like X amount of steel blocks and X amount of concrete blocks or whatever for the various types of specific parts that you would want to craft. But this brings me to an interesting question regarding crafting and refining in general. One thing I noticed in this trailer, or noticed a lack of in this trailer, are pipes. Crafting pipes, to be specific. How many of you remember the dev blog where they tease pipe systems for automating and crafting things? I've noticed that we have a crafting station over here, we've got a crafting station over here, we've got some other storage things and various things all around this base, but nowhere on this base do I see these transparent crafting pipes that they've teased in the past. Now, if you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, let me bring you over to devblog 16. So in this devblog, they showed us this piece right here, which they called the pipe and socket. So this right here is the socket. That's what I was pointing out on the storage crate. They had one on the top and they had one on the side. And they said that this is their new connecting system. And these allow players to transport blocks, parts, and consumables from one place to another. For example, from a refinery to a craft bot and into a chest. This is how players will also be able to fill up containers without doing it manually. So you can build a gas station, you drive up to the pipe and make sure it's close to the socket, and it will start filling up the container. In devblog 14, they also had more to say about these pipes. Check this out. Look at the example they have here of how the pipes are working. This seems super crucial for any base. Like we have I think this is before they actually had the refinery and the craft bot made, but it looks like we potentially have a placeholder animation for base materials getting converted into blocks, going into a craft bot and being made into something else. And then here you can see, here is artwork of the craft bot, which looks very, very similar to this guy that we see right here. And then we have the artwork of the refinement bot, which obviously looks very, very similar to this guy that we see right here. And this is where I was able to tease out the crafting flow, where it says here that the refinery will grind down resource materials into perfect blocks. And the craft bot here is for crafting single items or making a crafting chain between different craft bots and refineries. So this is going to be interesting how the crafting system is going to be all hooked up and everything. But I am really curious why I don't see a single one of these pipes anywhere in this trailer. Maybe I missed it, maybe there's somewhere, but they don't seem to be that crucial for the way that this really big and seemingly complex base is operating. Okay, so the next thing I noticed, which you may have noticed already, but it was something that I misread the first time I watched the trailer. So when I saw this shot, I thought that this was a grenade launcher because I saw this scene right here. They shoot and there was an explosion, and I thought that it was the actual gun itself causing the explosion. But if you look carefully, right at the beginning of this shot here, you see it's very, very dark, but there's an explosive canister right here. There's an explosive canister right here. As she aims up, you see another explosive canister right here. So this is actually a shotgun, a French fry shotgun, as you guys have overwhelmingly let me know down in the comments. And what's causing the explosion is they're actually setting up explosive traps for the Haybot hordes that are coming at their base, and they're shooting the explosives with their weapons to explode the Haybots. Another example of them using the explosives as traps is right here when they're about to break through the very, very large and wooden gate. Once it transitions to the next scene, look, right behind this mechanic, hiding behind him, is actually a large explosive that is currently fuming and about to explode. And you see all of these different bots trying to run after this guy, and then you see, watch everything around here too as this thing explodes. Ready? Boom. Massive explosion from the explosive, and you see all these parts are now falling off. They've actually done a lot of damage to their own base from that explosion, and I'm really wondering what those circular pieces are. Are they just aesthetic? I think they were attached. You can see a bearing right here, and I think they were attached to the bearings to make it look like some type of pulley system for the gate to open and close, but I don't know if it's actually functional or if it's just there to make it look like that. Around 2 minutes, check out this scene right here. So, I pointed out in my first impression of the trailer that they made their front gate out of wood, and I was like, why would you make your front gate out of weak material like wood? Wouldn't you want your base to be more fortified? And a lot of people were pointing out in the comments that the AI of the Haybots might be programmed to attack the weakest points first, which makes a lot of sense. So then that got me wondering, is there a material that is immune to farm bots? Because we only really saw them attacking wooden things and mechanics pretty much. But as I went through the trailer, I found points in which there were other damaged parts of the base which were intriguing. So look here, we see there's some concrete and there's some stone here, and you see we have a really irregular shaped hole, which indicates to me that this has received damage from something. I'm assuming that it is Haybots. And then as we go forward, this is really interesting too. I'm gonna pause right here. Look over to the right. We got some holes in the stone, but this fencing right here, you also see we got some damage to it here as well. And then over on this side, there's a lot more damage to these walls. So this at least confirms to me that stone and concrete are probably damageable by these haybots. All right, and then this same exact scene has another detail that I wanted to point out, and this is a detail that I don't like. This actually concerns me a little bit. So we're looking from a first-person perspective right now, which means this isn't some type of cinematic shot or anything like that. This is actually from a first-person gameplay. And we don't know if this person that we're seeing is the host or if they are another computer that has joined the host. But I'm assuming that this is actually another computer that is recording and not the actual host, because look at what happens. We have these fancy suspension here on the car that's about to bounce and fall down. Watch what happens on the second bounce. There's the first bounce. Everything looks all fine. And anybody who's played multiplayer knows that suspension and bearings don't always behave the best, and I was hoping that they would fix this stuff for the trailer or for survival, but look at this. Look at what we have going on here. I do not like the looks of this. I'm hoping that this isn't a big deal or anything. This concerns me a little bit because this is the kind of stuff that happens in multiplayer where you see the bearings going crazy and you don't get to see what the host is seeing when it comes to creations and moving parts. And we're seeing a little taste of that happening even in the trailer. And the trailer, of course, is going to be the best of the footage that they got. So the fact that this is happening in the trailer, it does concern me a little bit. But I'm hoping that this is going to be a really rare thing. And of course, it was really subtle too. Like here it is at full speed. Ready? Just like that. Really, really subtle. Didn't really affect things much at all. But when I saw that, I did get a little bit concerned. Okay, so another little detail that I noticed in this trailer was a visual marker of objects that you can pick up. You can see that they are carrying objects on their shoulders, which implies that they've picked it up off the ground. And I've noticed a couple spots where there's a visual of an indicator of what can be picked up. So look over here. You see these 3 stone pillars on the ground? They have a little flashing icon that is glitter, like a little glitter icon that is on them. And I'm assuming that that means that you can pick that part up. Now there's another spot where we see this on a different type of piece, but here, let's go back for a second. Here we go. You can see in this shot here, we have someone carrying what I think is wood, and then someone carrying a haybot leg, I believe it is, which is supposedly the metal scrap. So those are the same 3 base materials that we are seeing right over here. We got the wood, we got the stone that this guy is carrying, and then we got the metal scrap right here. Now, if you go over to 201, which is actually the same shot as where the car is doing its thing, over on the side of the screen here, we got those haybot parts, and you see we have that little pickup indicator. So this is one of those legs that you can pick up, and see, it has that cool shine to it. Now watch when these things, there's another one right there. They just got destroyed, and now you see there's another part that you can pick up on the ground. Yeah, just like that. So I thought that was pretty cool. We have a visual indicator that kind of highlights the things that you can pick up off the ground. And I think that's also the same type of indicator that you see when it comes to the loot crate here. Yeah, these are obviously much bigger. These are actually much more obvious. So yeah, these are very, very different, actually. I knew that it was like a glowing indicator, but now I'm realizing, now that I'm looking at it closer, yeah, these are different than the shoulder pieces that you can carry, apparently. All right, and then one more detail that I noticed at the end of the trailer involves the boss. First off, right before we get to the boss, we actually see the first instance of a door opening that I don't think is built by a mechanic. I think that's the actual factory door. Now, obviously, this is a big boss. They highlight, he's the end of the trailer. They highlight it as a very important character, and he seems to be in his own area. So obviously, this is going to be a high-risk, high-reward area. But what is the reward, I was wondering? And if you look around at the context of where we are, take a look at the symbols on these crates here. You can see we have like a radish or beet symbol or something, and then some other type of symbol here. So it seems like this is a massive farming plant or something where there's huge stores of vegetables and food. So if you want to have an abundance of resources to access, it seems like you're gonna have to deal with one of the most dangerous enemies in the game, at least, which is this guy right here. Oh, and here you can see an example of these weird backpacks too. these different backpacks. So that's just a handful of the more finer details that I noticed in the trailer. So I'm curious, did you guys notice anything that you don't think most people have seen in the trailer so far that might be some type of indicator of what we can expect when it comes to survival? So if you enjoyed this closer look at the trailer and the hype for survival and what we could expect, then hit the like on this video and let me know what you thought down in the comments below. If you missed my reaction and first impressions to the trailer, then you're definitely going to want to go ahead and check that out. I'll leave that up on the end screen right here. Hope this video has earned your subscription. Anyway, this has been ScrapMan, and I'll see you next time. Bye.